Good morning. My name is Nanette Banks. I'm the Letcher County Family and Consumer Sciences Agent.
And I'm Shad Baker, the Letcher County Ag and Natural Resources Agent.
And today we are going to do a program called Cook Wild Kentucky. So we're going to start off with a PowerPoint. And I will bring that up right now. And as you can see, this is Cook Wild Kentucky. And this is a partnership between the University of Kentucky Extension, the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, Feeding Kentucky, Hunters for the Hungry, and the Kentucky Department of Agriculture. Current recipes that we have right now are venison, fish, frog legs, duck, and rabbit. Today we are going to talk about venison. And in the future, the recipes are going to expand to elk, turkey, turtle, squirrel, raccoon, and beaver.
Okay, so as far as the rules for those that are participating in the Hunters for the Hungry, which is a program that's offered by the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, and this is a program that helps if you like to hunt but you don't necessarily want to keep the meat yourself, you can donate the venison to this program, and it is used to feed those in need. So there are some rules that you have to go by if you're going to donate to this program. After the harvest of the deer, you have to complete the log and record it through the telecheck. If you're a hunter, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but your hunting license has a little hunter log where you write down the confirmation number and all those things. So you have to complete all that information. The deer has to be properly field dressed. If the temperature is above 40 degrees, they really want you to put large bags of ice inside the body cavity of the deer. That's to help get the temperature down and to stabilize the meat so that it doesn't go bad. And you'll want to put one in the chest cavity and one between the hindquarters where those two big hams are. And you're just trying to get that meat chilled down quickly. And you can contact Hunters for the Hungry through an affiliated deer processor. So if you've got somebody that you routinely use, they ought to be familiar with this program because the Fish and Wildlife has reached out to them to request this. So when you harvest a deer, it's a lot like beef. It's the same cuts of meat from the same parts of the animal. And each of those cuts have different uses. So the tenderloins would be the ones that most people view as the best part of the deer, and those are located on the inside of the deer. Those little pieces of muscle that parallel the spine, and then on the outside you've got the back strap. And, this is a pretty long strip of meat that's, maybe that big around and about that long. And there's two of them, one on either side of the spine. Then you've got your neck, and you can kind of see over here what the different parts are used for. But we just wanted to give you a little illustration to show which part of the deer usually is used for which type of meat. And I'm not sure what Nanette has. I think you just got burger, don't you? Venison burger.
I have ground venison, yes, today.
Right. So so that could have come from the neck. It could have come from parts of the ham. There's several different places that they get that from. And this, as you might be able to tell, is not a deer. This is I believe it's a rabbit that we're looking at. But this is just to show you kind of a rough idea of what the different cuts of meat look like from just about any animal. And these are the parts that we're going to be using from a deer, though, not from a rabbit.
Okay, there are some Kentucky sources for USDA approved meats. And these are the places listed that you can buy the products. Good Foods Co-op in Lexington has ground venison and elk, which is the New Zealand kind, ground bison, which is Kentucky product, rabbit from Frankfort, Kentucky, and then duck from Kentucky. Critchfield Meats, which is in Lexington, and you can get ground venison plus many other types of game meat. And I know you can get duck, you can get rabbit, and you can get frog legs there also. Kroger, all Kroger stores have access to ordering these meats, but not all are carried on a regular basis. So make sure that you do and contact the Kroger store if you go there to make sure they have what you want before you go. They do have frog legs, which is sold in the fresh seafood case, ground venison, rabbit, duck, and a wide assortment of fish. Myers in Lexington has duck and a wide assortment of fish. Walmart Supercenters, they do carry ground bison, which you could substitute for venison if you wanted to, and a wide assortment of fish. J&S Rabbitry, which is in Frankfort, Kentucky, they have farm-raised rabbit. The Chop Shop in Wolfe County, they do carry frog legs. And then the United Grocery Outlet in Hazard, Kentucky. But like Kroger, you want to call ahead to make sure that they do have the venison, rabbit, and fish in the store before you go.
Thanks, Nanette. Now you've got me craving bison. I like eating bison. So when you harvest your deer, I think everybody knows that the faster you can get the meat refrigerated, the better. And you want to use care when you're field dressing the deer. Most people still gut them, which is they kind of do a cut down through the sternum and the rib cage all the way down to their pelvis, and they open that up and take the entrails out, and that's to help cause the heat to dissipate, and anything that was potentially part of the deer on the inside, be it the offal or the bladder or any of those things, you're going to get rid of that so that it can't spill out and taint the meat. I told this last week when we did this talk that I've experimented with a way of doing it that you actually don't gut them. You remove the meat from the outside. And to me, that's a lot cleaner way of doing it. You could probably find the videos on YouTube, but it's a gutless processing of deer. But the reason you're doing all this is to avoid the main mistake, and that is hunters a lot of times make mistakes in the process of field dressing the deer or how they process it, and that makes a huge difference. You cannot spray away the dirt. I know a lot of people feel like that, oh, well, if I get some urine on there, or if I get leaves or dirt or whatever, I can just take the hose and spray that off. And no, it doesn't work that way. The best solution is to not contaminate it to begin with. So everything that you do should minimize the possibility of there being any contamination whatsoever on that carcass. You want to get it down to about 35 to 40 degrees as soon as possible. And that's all the more important on hot days. So for folks that bow hunt, or if it just happens to be an unseasonably warm day that you get lucky in the woods, you want to try to do something to get the temperature down. So that may mean taking ice with you in a cooler or something. But any unfrozen meat needs to be in the refrigerator at 40 degrees, and it needs to be used within 2 to 3 days. So it doesn't have a long shelf life if you don't freeze it. Most people are going to just leave out maybe the tenderloin to have steak right off the bat, and then they're going to freeze the rest of it. But you want to keep that raw meat separated from other food and on trays with a lid, so that if there's anything that is on it, it's not going to contaminate anything else. And trimming the fat and making sure that you have clean cuts ready for end use is very, very important. That fat that's on the animal is where a lot of the off flavors come from. and wild game tend to take on the flavors of what they've been feeding on. And part of the reason why people think wild game tastes funny is because they have they've not been fed corn, and if you've got a refined palate, shall we say, you can taste the corn in beef that you eat. Obviously, most of our deer around here, unless you're in farm country, they've not been fed that corn. And so they've fed on browse, acorns, and those kinds of things. And so they will take on the flavors. And one way to minimize any of those odd tastes is to get rid of that fat, trim as much of it away as possible. If we're lucky, deer is a very lean meat naturally, so it doesn't have a huge amount of fat on it. But there are years that I've seen with a large acorn crop that when you skin the deer, you can see the fat even on the inside and along parts of the deer in between the meat. But you want to make sure that that gets trimmed away. And one of the reasons that I really like the gutless processing is that it doesn't let a lot of hair or leaf litter and things get on the deer in the woods. I pulled it out intact, and then you're actually skinning the deer just like you would a squirrel or a rabbit. So all of the hair is away from the meat. And, you know, that's probably the second biggest complaint, other than if there's an off flavor, is that hair got on the meat. And so do all that you can to avoid getting hair on your deer meat. After it dries, it's really hard to get it off, and just want to point that out to you.
And like Shad said, the fat is where the off taste does come from, and the fat will go rancid or bad quicker, and often has a very gamey, undesirable flavor. So that's why you want to get rid of the fat. And like he said, venison is a very lean meat, so there is not a whole lot of fat to worry about. Use packaging made for the refrigerator, such as wrap your meat tightly in wax paper, plastic freezer wrap, or heavy-duty aluminum foil. And for added protection, you can seal wrap meat in a plastic freezer bag or container, but make sure you push out as much air as possible. And always seal, label, and date each package. And this is with any type of meat or anything that you put in the freezer. You want to make sure that you do seal it correctly, label it with what it is in that package, and make sure you put the date. And you always want to rotate your freezer, put the new in the back and the old toward the front. Make sure you store ground venison in a freezer at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or colder for 3 months for best quality. Venison roasts and steaks can be stored for 6 to 9 months at 0 degrees or colder. Meat quality and flavor does deteriorate in the freezer over time, but remember to properly dress, handle, package, and then also quick freezing the venison in colder freezer temperatures can help maintain meat quality for the longest period of time. And remember to thaw your meat, venison, or any type of meat that you have in the refrigerator or microwave. Never put it out and leave it on the counter at room temperature. You want to make sure that your food is safe for consumption, so make sure that you always thaw it in the refrigerator and or microwave, and never at room temperature. So the key to cooking venison and making it tender, moist, and delicious is understanding that it has very little or fat cover. And like we said, it is a very, very lean meat. So to do this right here, you need to add butter or cheese or baste it with other fats for improved flavor. Without much fat, the meat does tend to dry out, so cook venison slowly using moist heat and baste often with a marinade sauce. Do not overcook the venison. If you have a roast, you can wrap it in aluminum foil after browning it in the skillet, or you can put it in a roasting pan and cover the roast in the roasting pan. And then if you want to have, like for self-basting, you can put strips of bacon on top of the roast, and that will self-baste it because that's adding extra fat to the venison. And make sure that the internal temperatures of venison are high enough to kill any harmful microorganisms. And cook ground meats, chops, steaks, and roast to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And then venison can be substituted for meat in many recipes and makes an excellent variation to your menu. So some other cooking tips. Your rump, round, and shoulder, which are your tougher cuts, you want to cook them slow with moist heat methods. And this is braising, simmering in a small amount of liquid in a covered pot. And then you have rib and loin, which are tender cuts, which your larger cuts, you want to roast those. And then with the chops and the steaks of the rib and loin, you can use dry cooking method, pan frying, broiling, or grilling. And it retains more juice if the cuts are no thicker than 3/4 inch. Cook your steaks and chops quickly. Make sure you don't crowd them in the pan. And water does seep out if the heat is too low or pieces are crowded. And some general tips: don't overcook the venison. Cook venison at temperatures about 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Serve game meat very hot or very cold because lukewarm game fat has a very greasy taste. And then baste very lean meats with additional fat to improve flavor. Covering roast with bacon strips will provide self-basting. Okay, before we start on the deer ecology, I am going to start with a recipe that I am going to just start with, and I'm going to change over the picture, but we are making a venison chili. And you can, and I did purchase this venison at a USDA approved source. And this right here, if I can figure out the camera. Oh, sorry.
It's like watching a guy try to back up a trailer.
And as you can see, this is the meat. I'm trying to get it. I had this down last week, but today is not doing a good day. So, but this is your ground venison, and it's in a box. Shad, I am so sorry that I am doing this, but it's ground venison, and it does come in a box.
Can you lay it in the pot?
I might. I hadn't thought about that. Yes, I can.
Now spin the pot around. There you go.
So this is it right there, ground venison, and it comes in a box like this, and it says keep frozen, which it was frozen when I got it. This is what it looks like in the package, and this is a 1 pound package of ground venison. And what we're going to do, we are going to put the 1 pound of ground venison into the cooker, into a large pot. And then I did chop up 1 whole large onion, and we're going to put that in there. And then while Shad is talking, I am going to brown the ground beef and the onions. And then this is half a green pepper that has been chopped. So we're going to put that in there. And then, and like I said, if you notice, the ground venison is really, really bright red. And this is because it's a very lean meat. There's not much fat to it. So it is really, really bright red. And we are going to go ahead and start this and put it on the oven and let it brown, and then let Shad talk a little bit. And we are going to come back after this right here is done and add the rest of the ingredients, and we'll go on. So hold on, we'll go back to the PowerPoint and start with it. Shad, are you back up?
I am. And I was just thinking about wrapping those steaks in bacon. It's making me hungry. Well, you also mentioned those shoulder roasts, and the way my wife fixed those is she puts those in one of the slow cookers and just lets it cook all day in the juices, and it's always really good and tender if you use a slow cooker. We're going to talk about.
And
Go
this
ahead.
chili recipe, Shad, it can be done in a slow cooker also. We're just doing it on the stovetop instead.
Okay. I like it when it cooks slow because it seems like the flavors get fuller when you cook it that way. As far as deer ecology is concerned, we're going to talk just a little bit about what deer like to feed on, what some of their behaviors are, how you can tell the age of your deer, and maybe some of the diseases that affect the deer population in Kentucky. Next. She's hitting, she's busy cooking.
I am trying to get it to go, and I don't know why it's not going. There.
Okay. So I told you earlier that deer aren't like beef cattle in the sense that they've not been fed hay and corn most of their lives. The diet of the typical deer in North America includes about 780 different plants. So they eat grasses, clovers, acorns, the little buds at the ends of limbs. They really like legumes, which would be your clovers, but it could also be alfalfa. It could be cerisa, a lot of different things. But they're pretty much, there's very few plants they won't eat. I was on a trip in Texas one time, and I found out that the plant horehound, that they make horehound candy out of, deer will not touch it. And so these pens that they've got the farm raised deer in are full of that horehound, which I guess is native somewhere down in Texas. But they really benefit from edges, and that means the transition zone between mature woods and open fields. So all along like roads or bottoms, you tend to get a lot of brushy growth along the edges, and it just benefits them with cover and also the kind of food that they like. They also like planted fields, and so if you've ever had a garden or field corn or soybeans or anything like that, you know what a pain they can be because they eat so many different things. They will kick open watermelons and pumpkins. They will feed on your sweet corn. They feed on my blueberries. They will feed on almost anything, and it's kind of seasonal. They will feed on whatever is available and is at its peak, and they seem to know the things that are the most nutritious at that time. So if you've got a bottom or a pasture that is over mature, you've let it go past the seed stage and it's started to brown down, the deer tend to vacate that area because they know that the food there is not as nutritious as it was when it was before it went to seed. They feed on soft mass through most of the summer, and as the acorns start to drop, you'll see them move away from the pasture fields and that soft mass, and they'll go into almost exclusively feeding on acorns. And they do this because they know that that's their highest energy. That's the way that they can put on the most fat in preparation for the winter. And so a lot of times, if you're trying to hunt deer, you'll leave those pastures alone and you'll go into the oak-dominated ridges and saddles or gaps along the mountain that tends to funnel their travel. Next. Should be able to hit the space bar and get it to go.
I don't know if it's because I have it on stop video, so that might be the problem. And I did forget, I will tell you this right here while I'm working on this. I was supposed to add 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil to that. And like I said, the reason we've done that is because the meat is so lean that we do have to add a little bit of fat to it.
Okay. So as far as deer behavior, deer, when they're alarmed, they'll stick up that tail and expose the white underside of their tail. And most wildlife biologists think that this is because it allows them to basically flag down their young. You know, if mom takes off running through the woods and she's brown, she might be a little hard to see, but that big white tail, you can see that. And so it allows the young to keep up with their mother when they're fleeing. I've always felt like that it was to torture the deer hunters, because you'll see that tail waving adios to you as you're seeing them run away. And that's the worst thing that a deer hunter would see, is that white tail. Deer will also snort and stomp their hoof, and that's usually when they're not quite sure what the problem is. They may have detected that there's something there that they're not happy with. Maybe they don't like the smell of something, or they think there's something there, but they can't quite figure out where it is. And so they will snort, and that alerts the other deer that there's something in the area. And they will also stomp their feet, and they've got a gland, I think it's an interdigital gland that is in their hoof that releases an alert pheromone. So when they stomp like that, they're marking the place with an alert scent that lets all the other deer in the area know that there's a problem, there's a danger in that spot. And they've got a very keen sense of smell. It's thought that their sense of smell is 60 times better than a human's. So this is the number one thing that a deer hunter has to be concerned with, is trying to make sure that their clothes, their hair, their hands, their body is as scent free as it can be. So especially bow hunters, they will be meticulous about laundering their clothing and hanging it out somewhere to dry. They'll use a special hunter soap to wash their clothes so that it doesn't smell like laundry detergent. You know, deer are smart enough to figure out when they smell Tide or Gain or something like that, that's not natural in the woods. So hunters use special soap that neutralizes that scent. Sometimes they'll store their clothes in a bag with baking soda to try to absorb the scent. But the best thing that hunters do is they try to use the wind to their advantage. And so that means that you generally, if you're walking along in the woods, you don't let the wind be blowing from you towards where you think you're going to see a deer. The deer will always smell you before you can see them, and they will already be gone. And so if you go through the woods and you've spent a lot of time in the woods and you're not seeing any deer, one of the causes, other than the fact that there might not be any deer in that area, is that they're smelling you, they're detecting you before you can see them. And another way we do this is, so you want that wind to be either going, blowing into your face or going from one side to the other, and as you advance. Another thing you can do is hunt from a tree stand, and a tree stand kind of keeps your scent up above the deer, and the wind will kind of blow it along at a certain elevation, and will keep your scent maybe from reaching them as soon. So if you don't mind heights, a tree stand helps with this. Keep in mind that deer have eyes that are on the side of their head, but they are kind of slightly to the front. So they've got 360 degrees of vision. And, or I'm sorry, not 360, 310. Only the very back of them is a spot where they've got a blind spot. So they've got the ability to see all the way around them. They generally don't have very sharp vision like we do. You know, we can see things out at a distance in front of us in real fine detail. And a deer's vision is not quite that developed. but they can detect movement really, really well. So being still is a big help to you. Keep in mind too that deer have very large cupped ears, and they can rotate those ears independently, so they're like little satellite dishes. And you notice that our ears are not designed that way, and so they have the ability to hear very well. So you have to be very quiet when you walk in the woods. You know, you want to sneak along or creep along, not breaking tree limbs, not talking, having watches turned off or silenced, and cell phones and all those things. You just want to be really, really quiet. They will leave scrapes and rubs in the woods. A scrape is a place on the ground where they rake back the leaves, and they will urinate into those scrapes to mark their territory, and also to let other deer know. It's like a signpost that, hey, I'm here. If you're interested, call me. It's kind of like giving your telephone number. That's deer giving each other their number. And if the doe that comes along likes what she smells in that scrape, then she will urinate in the scrape, and that's her giving her number back to the buck and letting him know that she's interested in him. And so that's one thing. You'll only see that used heavily during mating season, but they do use them year round. Rubs are where they will horn on the side of a tree with their antlers, and sometimes that's to remove velvet, which has covered the antler while it was growing. They remove that velvet in the fall and expose just the bare antler. But they also, they've got scent glands that are on their head and on their eyes, and even the corner. I guess they leave a lot of different scents when they go to these places. And so they've got a very highly developed sense of smell, and that's really important to them. Humans are mostly vision oriented, and deer are more scent oriented. And that licking branch, when you find a scrape, you'll almost always find a branch that's hanging out that they chew on while they are at that scrape. And again, I believe that that is scent that they're leaving, but that they seem to want to have that licking branch.
Okay, before we go on any further, I'm going to show you what the meat looks like in the cooker that we have browned already. And as you can see, it looks just like ground beef. And I have actually tasted the deer chili already, and it tastes just like regular chili. So now what we're going to do, we are going to add 2 16-ounce cans of chili beans. And this is just cans, and you don't drain these. This is just undrained. We're going to add 2 16-ounce cans of the chili beans. That's one. Here is the second one that we are going to add. And then we are going to add a 16-ounce can of diced tomatoes. And we are using petite diced, but you don't have to use petite diced. You can just use regular diced if you like the larger chunks. An 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. And then the spices that we are adding are right here in the bowl. And there's a bay leaf, which we are going to remove once the chili is done. And this is a half a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, and then a half a teaspoon of pepper. So I'm just going to dump them all in there together, stir it, and then we are going to let it simmer, and you have to let this simmer for 1 hour on the stove. So we'll come back to this after we are done with the PowerPoint. Let me get back to the PowerPoint. Okay, we're back, and I will let Shad start back.
Go to the next slide if you can. Okay, so I'm not sure how important this is to you, but you can tell the age of your deer based on the wear and tear on the teeth. If they are really sharp, especially the molars, lots of points on them, that's a young deer. If they've started to flatten out, then that's kind of a midlife crisis deer. And then when they're really down low and totally flat and polished, that's an old deer. And the reason why this might matter to you is the quality of the meat. I tend to prefer a younger deer. They don't have as strong a flavor to them, and but you're obviously, by the time you're looking at their teeth, you've already harvested that deer, so that's not an option. So what you can also do is look at the body and the antler size. Just like on us, once we get a little age on us, we start to have a lot of excess insulation, so to speak, and things start to sag, and it's the same way on a deer. You'll start to see, even in their face, they don't have that slender snout or muzzle anymore. It's more rounded, and their body, it won't have that lean, supermodel looking body anymore. It's kind of, everything's curvy, and maybe their belly sags just a little bit. So it happens to all of us, even to wildlife. But you can look at the antler size too. If it's a little fork horn or a spike or even a 6-point, chances are that's a young deer. If you start to see that it's got, it's a 12-point or a big 10-point or something, that's an indication that that deer is getting a little age on it. And so you really have to decide what your purpose is. If you're going to hunt horns, then that is going to come at the expense of the quality of the meat. If you are after the meat, you are not hunting for big antlers. So it will be one or the other, generally. Nanette, I'm hitting my fast forward button and it's not working.
It's not working for me neither for some reason.
It's that camera thing that throws it off.
I think it is. I think it's on a delay or something.
Okay, so there are a couple of diseases that you need to know about that affect the deer herd in Kentucky. And the one here, most people refer to it as blue tongue. It's epizootic hemorrhagic disease, and or EHD. And this is the one that we have had most recently in our area. It tends to be favored by moist conditions during the summer. So if we have a wet year, that one tends to be a little worse. And that's because the insects, the little midges that spread it, tend to survive better in moist conditions. So it's a virus, and when these biting insects, these little midges, bite the deer, they transmit the virus. And the deer, usually when they're infected, they will start to act peculiar. A lot of times they'll head to water, which is a common thing for animals that are not feeling good. But so a lot of times you'll find them down near the road around here, because our roads tend to parallel the rivers and the streams, and the deer have been trying to get to the water, and they collapse and die. And so this is a pretty significant disease as far as keeping our deer numbers suppressed. I guess it's gone on. It went on this past year, and really we've had, I think, 4 or 5 really wet years now. And so during these 4 or 5 wet years, we've had a pretty big outbreak of EHD, and we've lost a lot of deer. And the places that a lot of people have had luck recently have been deer herds that were up high on ridges where they were maybe not under the same amount of pressure from those biting insects. The other one that's a threat to us is CWD, or chronic wasting disease. And this is caused by prion, which, if I understand it right, it's just a kind of a piece of DNA. And it survives in the environment. So forest fires and things do not kill or eliminate this. And it's not been confirmed in Kentucky yet, but it's been confirmed in all the states around us. And so we're worried about this. It is spread via the saliva of an infected animal. So this is part of the reason why deer feeders and things like that can be a problem. They might encourage the spread of this disease because they're causing a lot of animals to come to the same place. And their saliva, they might encounter the saliva of an infected animal. But it's concentrated in the brain and the spine of the animal. And so because of this, the state law prevents people from transporting deer from other states unless it's completely processed. And so I took my deer to a processor in Virginia, and before I could take it over there, it had to be totally boned out with the exception of the hams. So you couldn't take a head over there, and you couldn't take any part of the spine. And in the past, you just skinned the deer out and took it to the butcher. And now, if you're going across the state line, you cannot do that. And it's to keep this under control. And this is really, really serious for us, because if it becomes established and widespread in Kentucky, that will be the end of deer hunting in those counties where it's found. Humans can contract this, and I believe it's not just limited to deer. I think it can get into to other animals as well. So it's obviously, if we can have problems from it, then it would affect other animals. So we do not want this. If you're thinking about going deer hunting, you do need to buy a license and a permit. Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources sells an annual hunting license and a statewide deer permit. I usually get the sportsman's license because that has everything that I need all in one thing. But those permits allow you to take up to 4 deer, not 4 deer. And I threw that up to in there because it depends on several restrictions. And I just wanted you to know about that. If you have been successful, you need to fill out the harvest log, and you call in. There's a telecheck number, which is basically a phone number, and an answering machine type thing will kick on, and it will ask you for some information. And you have to enter that information in, and it will spit out a confirmation number for you. And that confirmation number is your proof that you legally harvested and checked that deer. And so if you're going to take it to the butcher, or if you're going to have it taxidermied or anything like that, you have to have that confirmation number. Anybody that was born after 1975 also has to have a valid hunter ed card. And that's the little orange card that says that you have been trained on how to hunt safely. And if you go to a quota hunt on one of the special hunts that are across the state, like Fort Knox or Land Between the Lakes, they also require you to have a valid hunter ed card. So there's other reasons for having it. I think everybody ought to get the hunter ed card. I think it was the best thing they ever did as far as teaching people the best way, the safest way to hunt, so that they weren't a threat to themselves or to others. This is just a map from the hunting guide, and if you're going to deer hunt, you definitely want to get a copy of the hunter guide. You can get these at Walmart or anywhere that sells hunter licenses. So I know a lot of gas stations and places like that typically have these and they're free. But this is just a map that's showing you the different seasons for deer, and the different counties have different seasons. And the reason for that is, counties out in West Kentucky, they've got a lot more pasture land, a lot more corn, and it's just more fertile land. And so they tend to have a lot higher deer population. As you come to the east, the southeast, you get into the mountains, and we tend to have lower deer numbers. And so they have to be a little more conservative in how they manage the deer herd in this part of the state as compared to the western part. And when I say conservative, that means out west they can harvest more deer. It's just a liberalized season. The gun season might last longer, or they can kill does longer, that kind of thing.
Okay, that is all the PowerPoint that we have, but I was going to show you a couple of things. This right here are some of the recipe cards that we do have, and this is the venison chili recipe card, and it has a picture on the front, and then on the back it has the directions and the nutrition facts. Like for this pot of chili, it has 10 servings, and it's a 1-cup serving, and approximately 190 calories for a 1-cup serving of this venison chili, 4.5 grams of total fat, 1 gram of saturated fat, 40 milligrams of cholesterol, 640 milligrams of sodium, and 20 grams of carbohydrates. We also have roast venison. We have venison stew, deer camp breakfast sausage, slow cooker venison enchiladas, venison steak, venison meatloaf, venison cabbage rolls, barbecue venison meatballs, and then the last one, venison sloppy joes. So if you want a copy of any of these recipe cards, please just call our office at 606-633-2362, and we can send you out a stack of recipe cards. But now with TV, we're going to share the pot of chili of the complete end product of chili, and I will set up. And this is our pot of chili after it has simmered for 1 hour. And like I said, and the only thing you have to do is make sure that you do take out before you serve, take out this bay leaf. You do not want to leave the bay leaf in. You want to remove that and not let anybody eat it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact our office and talk to either me or Shad Baker, and we can give you some information on venison. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Our next class is going to be January 20th at 1:30, and this will be done via Zoom. So if you want to attend this class on the 20th at 1:30, just contact us and let us know, and we can get you an email sent that has the Zoom link, and we can get that out to you also. And this one will be on rabbits. We will have a recipe on rabbit, and we'll also be talking about the different things with rabbit. Thank you for attending. Bye-bye.